Like, yeah, there's just so many levels of conspiracy and deception going on. You know, ad girl, smart. Yeah, they don't got a warrant. You don't got to talk to them. You're calling the police reporting saying that a female is being forced into a dog trot, like an actual like movie style kidnapping, and it was them going to enjoy a day at the park. Yeah, this is like some Lex Luthor type stuff that we've got going on here. Well, folks, y'all know I've been covering pretty much every element of the Tory Lanez versus Megan Thee Stallion shooting case that there is to cover, but y'all just let me know over on X that there was one element of this case that I needed to look more deeply into, and that is this lawsuit that Demoree Hadley has filed against her mother Desiree Perez, who is the CEO of Roc Nation. And this is relevant to the Tory Lanez case because at the core of this lawsuit are allegations that Desiree Perez and Roc Nation were engaged in clear manipulations of both the medical system and the legal system in an attempt to weaponize them against Demoree and her husband Javon Hadley. And on top of that, there's just a lot of suspicious overlap between what was going on with this case and what happened with the Tory Lanez case. I'm going to get into all of it later, but just as one example, the same lawyer who was going to the police trying to get Javon Hadley arrested and away from Demoree, that was Alex Spiro, who was the same lawyer who was representing Meg during the Tory Lanez trial. And so yeah, for today's video, we're just going to go through this entire complaint that Demoree Hadley has filed and try and get a better understanding of Roc Nation and what they're capable of to see how that may have applied to the Tory Lanez case. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Scotty O, aka the Gen Z Attorney, and as of this upload, I am currently a defense attorney now. Right, I left my job as an assistant district attorney. It was a good run, learned a lot of great stuff, but for a lot of life reasons, it was time for me to make the jump, so here I am, defense attorney Scotty O. But anyway, on this channel, I make videos talking about high-profile court cases and trying to just pull the curtain back to show y'all what's really going on with them. And so if you like this coverage of the Tory Lanez Megan Thee Stallion case, then drop a like on this video, and if you like this kind of content talking about these big high-profile cases, then subscribe to come back for more. And of course, I'd love to connect with y'all, so I want to see y'all down in the comments. Let me know what you think about this lawsuit, how it ties to the Tory Lanez case, or just go connect with me on X at the Gen Z Attorney. Without further ado, let's jump right in. And all right, here we have it. This is the complaint that Demoree Hadley has filed against Desiree Perez, Roc Nation, and all these other people. Got this complaint from Diddy Docket, so shout out to him. Go follow him on X. We just connected over there, and it's been great talking to him. But yeah, I'm really just going to read through this thing. It's 64 pages, so I'll try and go a little faster than normal. But there's a lot of good stuff in here, so let's find out what we got. Although I will say, off to a not good start to begin with, because that's not how you spell Southern, and this is federal court, so they really typos really can ding you in the eyes of the judge. But anyway, all right, verified complaint. Plaintiff Demoree Hadley brings his complaint against all these people. Blah blah blah. We'll get to know these people as we get into it. Parties, jurisdiction, and venue. Just introducing the parties, introducing who everybody is. Blah, blah, blah. Once again, we will get back into these as they become more relevant. Jurisdiction and venues, some typical civil procedure stuff. You have to establish that the court you're suing in has jurisdiction over the case. And this question looks like diversity jurisdiction. Yep, because it was two parties of different... Oh, 1331. So they're saying 1331, that's federal law. The federal court has jurisdiction because there's federal law in question, but also 1332, meaning it's a diversity jurisdiction, meaning the two parties, the plaintiff and defendant, are from different states. So, and the amount of controversy exceeds 75 grand, so you can sue in federal court. So, supplemental jurisdiction over the state claims. This is all standard stuff. Alrighty. Facts giving rise to the claims. This case gives meaning to the phrase, "You wouldn't believe it until you see it." Desiree Perez, Desiree, is a former drug trafficker, confidential informant, and convicted felon who is now the CEO of Roc Nation in New York City. Demoree Hadley, Demoree, is Desiree's biological daughter. Javon Hadley, Javon, is Demoree's husband. Demoree met Javon while they attended Miami Palmetto Senior High School. Demoree and Javon have been together for the past 15 years, got married in 2024. This complaint will refer to them collectively as the Hadleys. Past 2 years, Desiree has used her money, power, influence to tear the Hadleys apart. Desiree created an enterprise of individuals to effectuate her plot and use unlawful means to have Javon falsely arrested on 3 different occasions and Demoree falsely detained under Florida's Baker Act and Marchman Act statutes. Unfortunately, as detailed below, Desiree has a history of using illegal tactics to get her way, even if it requires wearing rubber gloves and providing false information to authorities. And I guess that's what that's supposed to be. Her in the act, on camera, with rubber gloves providing false info. In addition to being CEO of Roc Nation, upon information and belief, Desiree is part owner of the company. Roc Nation was founded in 2008 by music icon Jay-Z, become one of the most influential entities in the entertainment sports industries. Roc Nation represents chart-topping musicians, elite athletes, influential entertainers, including Rihanna, J. Cole, Shakira, Kevin Durant, and Saquon Barkley. NFL contracts Roc Nation to organize select performers for the Super Bowl halftime show. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I thought the NFL did that. It's like Roc Nation, huh? So we have them to blame. We have them to blame for Lil Wayne getting snubbed from the New Orleans halftime show. I see how it is. Okay. ROC Nation also assists artists with creating content for concerts and movies. Desiree, as CEO, has an army of tech staff with access to the best technology that money can buy. Also has a team of attorneys, guys like Alex Spiro, who's Meg's attorney in the Tory case. So I'm sure we'll get into that more. Also has a team of attorneys and private investigators at her disposal. Despite her current position, Desiree's background and discreet rise to prominence was highly unusual. Unfortunately, Desiree's past and her abandonment of Demoree is the root cause of the current friction between mother and daughter. Their relationship is unfortunate, sad, and disheartening. More disappointing, their relationship could have been repaired through alternative means, but Desiree chose to employ heavy-handed tactics instead. Yes, heavy-handed, like manipulating the law, manipulating the medical system. Indeed. All right, Desiree's past as a drug trafficker, confidential informant, fraudster, and fugitive. She participated in federal drug trafficking activities in the 90s under her prior name, Desiree Reynoso. Following Desiree's federal indictment and arrest, she was originally sentenced to 30 months imprisonment. However, Desiree became a CI, confidential informant, and provided information to federal law enforcement, which caused the government to file a motion eliminating her 30-month prison sentence. While engaged in narcotics trafficking activities, Desiree gave birth to Demoree in 1994, November. Even after Demoree's birth, Desiree continued to engage in criminal conduct. For instance, local law enforcement arrested Desiree in April of '96 for a slew of fraudulent criminal activity, including organized fraud, grand theft, and several counts of uttering forged instruments. That's like a forged check. When Desiree got arrested on the state court charges, she had already been sentenced to federal prison, but was still out on bond. Her surrender date got delayed to at least August 12, '96, as shown on federal probation affidavit. Desiree later fled to New York while on probation and became a fugitive from justice. March '98, New York officials arrested Desiree for grand larceny, criminal use of drug paraphernalia, and criminal possession of a firearm. So it's 2 years later. But yeah, so she gets out in 94 based on her snitching as a CI, gets in trouble again in 96 for some serious issues, and then trouble again in 98 for some more serious issues. She pled guilty in New York State Court, was only sentenced to conditional discharge, basically probation. Eventually sentenced to 9 months imprisonment for violating federal probation, which two different court systems, state court, federal court, they can both punish you in different ways if they so choose. Choosing a life of crime over motherhood, Desiree dumped her infant daughter, Demoree. I think it's Demoree. I think I've heard it say Demoree. Demoree on Demoree's maternal grandfather, Julio, and his longtime partner, Olga. Growing up, Demoree referred to Julio as abuelo and Olga as mommy, which Desiree despises to this day. I can see. Calling grandma mommy. Well, if you've been absent because you've been frolicking in your life of crime, then yeah, sorry. Be present, mom. 2002, almost fresh out of prison, Desiree somehow became the owner of the 40/40 Club in New York. Desiree has mostly remained in the greater New York City area since then, chose money, power, and influence at all costs. To the outside world, it appears that Desiree turned her life around and became a successful CEO. But secretly, Desiree continued to engage in acts exposing herself and others to both civil and criminal liability, which a state prosecutor noted in her closeout memorandum relating to Javon's fraudulent arrest. According to that memo, the victim's mother called in that's Desiree. Desiree called in a false 911 call in December, which is a crime in and of itself, and reported the victim was getting kidnapped, the victim here being Demoree. Desiree also petitioned to have Demoree Marchman acted, and the victim was Baker acted. The witnesses under oath told ASA Sopina and ASA Farrell that the victim does not do drugs or drink. The Marchman Act was voluntarily withdrawn April 5th, the day the defendant was arrested for case, blah, blah, blah. Victim on April 16th, 2024, testified, and then, it just kind of goes on more into the memo. That's the key part of all this, too, because the state's attorney's office in Miami looked into this case, looked into the claims that Desiree and family were making against Javon Hadley, Demoree's husband, claims that he was abusive and controlling and toxic, and both physically and emotionally abusing Demoree. They decided to look into the case and decided to not press charges against Javon and wrote a whole 11-page memorandum closing out the investigation and explaining why they did not press charges. And in fact, in their memo, stating that, even Desiree, she herself was engaged in some criminal activity by making a false 911 call. And there's more later, bad conduct that Desiree is engaged in that this memo mentioned. So we're going to get back to this memo later for sure. And all this so far, it's all kind of laying foundation for the basis of this case, which is that Desiree has been resorting to more unlawful means in an attempt to effectuate her desired outcome in regards to her daughter, and shows kind of the abilities that ROC Nation has to manipulate both the legal system and the medical system, which are both key elements of the Tory Lanez case, both the medical system and the legal system. As related to this lawsuit, Desiree conspired with others to illegally record the Hadleys in their bedroom, hack Demoree's phone, and unlawfully detain the Hadleys on several occasions, which included concocting false evidence against them. This is big stuff, big accusations here. Illegally recording, hacking into a phone, unlawfully detaining, yeah. Candidly, it is difficult to imagine that a mother would do the acts listed below to her own child, but the screenshots included in this complaint prove otherwise. Close-up memo, Desiree's victim mother, yeah, okay. All right, Desiree unlawfully wiretapped Demoree in Javon's bedroom. Desiree, at an unknown time, conspired with others to surreptitiously plant a camera into the Hadleys' bedroom without their knowledge, which existed since at least July 18, 2022. Desiree literally admitted this fact in a frivolous lawsuit she filed against Javon. And I may cover this lawsuit still at some point, because this was the first kind of how this all started. Or Desiree literally filed a lawsuit against Javon Hadley for his supposed abuse that he was perpetuating against Demoree. But the only problem was Demoree was not a part of this lawsuit, and she did not want this lawsuit to happen. So here you've got the mother-in-law trying to sue her son-in-law for basically on behalf of Demoree. And so that lawsuit was kind of a disaster to begin with. And yeah, when it was pretty much frivolous. And I'm not sure that where it is right now, so that's why I may have to make a video looking into it. But that's how this all started, was this lawsuit that did lead to Javon getting arrested. And also, as a result of the facts of what happened in it, led to Demoree getting Baker acted and involuntarily committed to a hospital for almost 2 weeks. So. All right, in her complaint, Desiree even included a snapshot from the illegal recording device in Hadley's bedroom. So this is the beauty of litigation. Once stuff gets into court, there's really no hiding anymore. If you've got a source, you've got to disclose the source. If you've got a witness, the confrontation clause requires that witness be able to be confronted in the courtroom by whoever they're accusing. So yeah, it's great to have this secret camera in the bedroom for your own personal observation to try and gather information. But once you actually step into a court of law, guess what? You've actually got to attach that now, and that becomes public, and now they know exactly where it is and what you've been doing. In addition to the illegal camera, Desiree also planted a listening device pictured below inside their bedroom. Unbeknownst to the Hadleys, Desiree kept both recording devices in their bedroom for years, which is clearly illegal. The prosecutor in Javon's frivolous criminal battery case, which Desiree facilitated, even recognized the illegal act of recording the Hadleys in their bedroom. So once again, this is the case that Desiree filed against Javon, claiming that he was emotionally and physically abusing Demoree. But the prosecutors looked at the case and decided to close it out without filing charges and saying there is an audio recording of September 11, 2023 incident. This recording is an illegal recording and even still inconclusive of a battery. The recording captures the defendant yelling at the victim, and it sounds like the victim says, "Don't hurt me." In another illegal recording, the victim confides in a friend that the defendant grabbed her neck. This would not explain the redness on the cheek and is not fully consistent with what the witnesses saw when they walked in. However, the victim's conversation with her friend is also part of an illegal recording and is further hearsay. You can do all this. You can do this all you want to get your own stuff, but sorry, the court of law, it's got rules called the rules of evidence, and you actually have to have evidence that is admissible in court, which you did not have here because you were doing illegal stuff. All right, Desiree illegally hacked Demoree's iCloud account. Desiree also hacked or directed her highly trained technical staff at ROCNation to hack Demoree's iCloud account, giving Desiree unfettered access to Demoree's digital data, including text messages, photographs, and videos. Yeah, this is another big claim here, talking about being able to engage in some sketchy practices to get information that you want. Demoree has witnessed her mother direct her tech team at ROCNation to infiltrate other people's digital data, including an instance where Desiree wanted to determine how a chart-topping artist's upcoming movie got leaked. Demoree first realized her mother hacked her iPhone on March 1st, 2024. On that day, the Hadleys' friend Sergey, called Demoree after noticing that Demoree's cell phone and Apple Watch were pinging in New York. Oh, real quick, back to the memo. Prosecutor's memo, Javon's alleged defendant, Demoree, the alleged victim. Desiree is the one who conspired with others to illegally record the Hadleys. Notably, although the camera has been in the Hadleys' bedroom since 2022, failed to produce a single video showing Javon physically assaulting her on September 11, 2023. Demoree voluntarily gave Javon and Sergey her access to her location. The screenshot below is from Javon's phone showing that Demoree was supposedly in New York. So Javon pulls up his phone. She shared her location with him. And look, oh wow, it's saying she's in New York. And the Apple Watch also, oh, it's in New York. Huh, interesting. Only problem is, when Demoree checked her iCloud account on her phone, which she had in her hand in Miami, it showed that iPhone 2 on her account was pinging to ROC Nation's headquarters in New York. So she's literally standing there in Miami and looking, and her friends, her husband, Javon, is looking at her location as it's shared with him, and it's showing she's in New York when she's literally standing there in Miami holding her phone. So it seems pretty conclusive that that they were hacking into her phone in New York. And also this becomes evident later with some more evidence that Desiree was trying to use against Javon and her lawsuit against him. The problem is that Demoree only had one iPhone device attached to her iCloud account, the one she was literally holding in her hand. Not surprisingly, Desiree's office at ROCNation is located at 540 West 26th Street. Google Maps shows that 538, location appearing on Demoree's iCloud account, which is ROCNation's headquarters, are literally part of the same building. Demoree believes iPhone 2 device in her iCloud account, which placed her location at ROCNation, was a device cloned by her mother's team. Again, Demoree has personally witnessed her mother order her team to clone a person's iPhone for her access. In Desiree's frivolous lawsuit against Javon, she somewhat admitted to hacking Demoree's phone. Desiree filed screenshots of text messages between Demoree and Javon, but failed to adequately explain how she acquired them. That's that's crazy. That is, I can't imagine that happening. But it's true, but I believe it. I believe it happened. It's just so crazy that it did happen. It's hard to imagine. She's going to give you text messages from your own phone that you never shared with her. Unbelievable. Prosecutor in Javon's case even noted the oddity of Desiree's ability to provide private conversations between Demoree and Javon dated back to 2017. Back to the memo again. The victim is very concerned with the conduct of her family. The victim found a tracker in her luggage and believes she was followed to the state's attorney's office where she came in for her pre-file statement. When the victim came into the SAO, attorney for the witnesses also appeared and inquired with the receptionist as to the whereabouts of the victim. So you've got Demoree showing up to the state's attorney's office to give a statement, and then all of a sudden, her showing up there, now Desiree's lawyer, the Roc Nation lawyer, also coincidentally just shows up the same exact time asking about where Demoree is. So, yeah, this is like some Lex Luthor type stuff that we've got going on here. The victim claims her family has hacked her iCloud account, accessed her private data information. Victim's mother provided the state with the Google Drives of evidence which contain private conversations that the victim had with the defendant dating as far back as 2017. As explained below, Desiree used illegal bedroom recordings, stolen iCloud data, and other means during her conspiracy to fraudulently convince people that Demoree needed to be unlawfully committed to a mental health institution and drug rehab facility under Florida's Baker Act and Marchman Act statutes. She used the same information to get Javon falsely arrested. Alright, Desiree threatened to Baker Act Demoree. Desiree's first time threatening to Baker Act her was September 14. Lured her to her home under the false pretenses that Demoree's uncle needed to be taken to the hospital, which was untrue. Demoree rushed to the mother's home and was confronted for an intervention. As seen below from the snippet of the police report. So we know police get involved at some point, so this is about to take a sharp left turn. Admitted to having an intervention for Demoree, she hired a counselor named Victoria Hunter. Contact was made with Desiree Perez, who advised she is the mother of Miss Lopez. Miss Perez advised that she brought a counselor over named Victoria Hunter with the family to have an intervention for her daughter, Miss Lopez. Although Desiree told officers that Victoria Hunter is a therapist, Miss Hunter has never been a licensed therapist in Florida. Desiree convinced Miss Hunter to lie to the police and falsely claimed she was a therapist. Okay. Was not interested in her mother's intervention, demanded to leave, was prevented from leaving by confiscating her dog. Desperate to leave, she attempted to climb over the fence and was pulled back and stated, "I am going to Baker Act you if you stay with that N-word. I will have you committed." Desiree's statement was not some veiled threat and later came to fruition. Demoree called 911, requested police assistance. Desiree flaunted her power. CEO of Roc Nation claimed she had Pinecrest police in her pocket. Pinecrest police officers arrived on the scene, eventually forced Desiree to allow her daughter to leave, but due to her influence, the officers did not press charges against Desiree for false imprisonment. Now, I can see why they might say it that way. Honestly, my feeling on why this happened was just, when you got family situations like this, look, I saw this all the time in my DA job. Like, you've got domestic situations like this. There's really no clear perpetrator, no clear good guy, no clear bad guy. It's just, look, y'all just figure this out amongst yourself. We're not charging anybody. Y'all just, we're not getting involved in this. Plus, if nothing else, it's just too much paperwork. Same day, Desiree showed up at Demoree's grandfather's home where the Hadleys were residing. Desiree confronted Javon, told him, "I know everything that happens with you and Demoree. If you stay with her, you're going to get yourself killed. Maybe get yourself suicided." Based upon Desiree's threats, the Hadleys moved out of Demoree's grandfather's home on October 1st into a home located in Homestead, Florida. In response, Desiree rented the house directly across the street from the Hadleys, and Homestead pointed a camera towards their home and ordered private investigators, many who are unlicensed, to stalk and harass the Hadleys. So they move out, they'll get their own place, and Desiree has a team of PIs move into the house across the street from them to just keep 24/7 surveillance on them. Investigators who stayed across worked for CTS Research in New York City. Followed 24 hours, 7 days a week. Many times, CTS investigators followed the Hadleys at unsafe distances in their cars, causing the Hadleys to fear for their safety while driving. On one occasion, a CTS investigator, who was unlicensed, had a gun laying on the front seat while following Javon. Below is a camera used by the investigators. So yeah, can you imagine just looking at your front door at the house across the street, and you just see this camera just on your house all the time? Gosh, it's unbelievable. Desiree conspired with Demoree's employer, Iconic Creative LLC. After her first plot failed, Desiree upped the stakes to have Demoree committed. Since January 21, Demoree worked for a creative agency in Miami called Iconic Creative. Of course, Iconic often worked events for ROC Nation and its artists. For 2.5 years, Demoree's salary at Iconic was approximately $65,000, and the company was in financial distress, a fact that owners shared with Demoree. Dealing with a lot, we're in a bad place, $45K, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, the company's not doing too good financially. But then, out of nowhere, in October 2023, right after Desiree threatened to Baker Act Demoree if she did not leave Javon, she received a salary increase from $65,000 to $125,000, dang near doubling her salary. Upon information and belief, Desiree stopped in and helped resolve Iconic's financial problems with strings attached, i.e. controlling Demoree. Yes, from what it would appear here is that Desiree knew the company was in bad straits, but she stepped in, basically gave them just huge infusion of cash and said, yeah, and you're going to give my daughter a huge raise. As more means of controlling Demoree. Found it odd because she knew the company's financial situation. She was also ecstatic about her pay increase, of course, but little did she know what was to come. Suddenly, Iconic began asking Demoree to stay late, work longer hours, and to frequently travel. While some of the demands made sense at the time because of the pay increase, Demoree did not realize that this was a nefarious plot was on the way, i.e. splitting up Demoree and Javon. On December 12, 2023, Liz Fergala and Benny Fergala, the owners of Iconic, texted Demoree stating that she was required to attend a meeting with the Nike Academy the following day, i.e. December 13. Okay, saying, hey, OMG, I forgot to tell you we have a Nike Academy call, 11 a.m. tomorrow. They asked us to pick someone that could train the office. Sorry it's late, I just wanted to put it on your radar. Demoree found it odd that Liz and Benny told her to attend a Nike Academy meeting because the Nike Academy was revamping its workshops. When Demoree got signed onto Zoom, only one person, Rachel Thomas, was at the training. Demoree found this odd because every other training meeting with the Nike Academy consisted of at least 20 people. Rachel Thomas signed into Zoom and identified herself as a representative from Nike Academy. Rachel then began asking Demoree questions that were unrelated to work. Demoree, suspicious of Rachel's intent, asked Rachel if she could record the conversation. Rachel consented. Demoree recorded the conversation, took a screenshot of Rachel. Rachel proceeded to give Demoree a quasi-psychological evaluation without Demoree's approval or consent. Upon information and belief, Desiree conspired with Liz and Benny, the owners of the Iconic, to have Demoree undergo a mental health evaluation with Rachel. After the training, Demoree asked for Rachel's Nike Academy profile. Rachel agreed to provide it, but did not do so immediately, probably because it had not been created. A few days later, Demoree received a fake link showing Rachel's false affiliation with the Nike Academy. Upon information and belief, Desiree and/or Liz and Benny asked someone to create the fraudulent website. My gosh, like so many levels of deception going on. We've got the getting the bosses to get them to tell her, hey, we need you to sign on to this meeting. Meeting usually has 20 people, but now it's just this random person, and now you're creating a fake website too. Like yeah, there's just so many levels of conspiracy and deception going on. All right, upon reason belief, information to create a fraudulent website. The website was later deleted after Liz and Benny realized that Demoree was becoming suspicious. Liz and Benny required Demoree to attend 2 other training sessions with Rachel Thomas. The last one occurred right before Christmas. At the time, Demoree did not know Rachel's true identity, but in reality, Rachel Thomas was really a woman named Rachel Bernstein, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist from California who specializes in sexual cults and has a podcast on sexual cult recovery. Jeez, I don't know. It's just the amount of commitment. It's like a bad joke, right? Or sometimes to make a bad joke work, it's just the commitment to the bit that makes it work. This is not working. Yes, now we've actually found who she is, and so even we're lying about who she is, what her name is. This was just a ploy by Desiree to have Demoree improperly evaluated. Suffice it to say, Rachel Bernstein was never associated with the Nike Academy when Demoree attended the training session. Oh my goodness. Desiree immediately conspired to have Javon arrested. On December 26, 2023, less than a week after the 4 sessions with Rachel failed, Desiree reported to Miami-Dade police that Javon battered Demoree on January 16, almost 2 years prior. December 29, officers responded to the Hadley's home to speak with Javon. Demoree answered the door and told the officers that nothing happened on the day in question, directing the police to leave if they did not have a warrant. You know, atta girl, smart. Yeah, they don't got a warrant, you don't got to talk to them. Yeah, good stuff. The next day, December 30th, Desiree ordered private investigators to follow the Hadleys to Pinto Farms. While the Hadleys were enjoining, I'm assuming that means to say enjoying, not enjoining. While the Hadleys were enjoying Pinto Farms with their nephews, Desiree falsely reported to 911 that Javon kidnapped Demoree and was holding her hostage. There it is. This looks like an officer report of what the what the officers received regarding dispatch. Right, Saturday, December 23rd, I was dispatched in emergency mode to the Pinto Farm located at 14 blah blah blah. Reference to a female being forced into a Dodge Charger with a Florida tag called in by an anonymous complainant. Upon arrival, the vehicle was located unoccupied in the parking lot of the Pinto Farm. Units were then approached by a male who identified himself as Jeff Brown, a PI. Stated that the male exited the vehicle and is wanted in a domestic crimes case. Yeah, that's insane. How you're calling the police reporting saying that a female is being forced into a Dodge Charger, like an actual like movie style kidnapping, and it was them going to enjoy a day at the park. Jeez, man. Like, once again, it's the commitment to the bit. She's so committed to the bit. It's crazy. As shown in the screenshot below, Desiree's allegations were completely false. Demoree was hardly being abducted and spending quality time with her soon-to-be husband and nephews. Aw, happy day at the park. No, she looks like she's been kidnapped. State's Attorney's Office documented Desiree's criminal act of falsely reporting a crime in their closeout memorandum. I think this is the same. Yeah, this is the same blurb from earlier saying she made a false 911 call. When officers arrived on the scene, they quickly realized Desiree lied to the police, as recognized with the SA's office. However, Desiree had already conspired with high-ranking members of the police department and others to falsely arrest Javon for the battery. Although the prosecutor ultimately dropped the charges against Javon, he was embarrassed that the police arrested him in front of his nephews, understandably so. Desiree avoided any charges for falsely reporting a kidnapping. Yeah, after seeing this, after seeing how this all played out, I don't like that outcome. I would think the police would want to take that, because this is clearly a false 911 call. Back to Iconic's plot with Desiree. Approximately 1 week after Javon was released on bond from his fraudulent arrest, Iconic fired Demoree without any explanation. Demoree's firing was bizarre because she had just received glowing reviews from Liz. Yeah, so we just need you right now more than ever. This will change and we won't depend on you, but for now we need you. We don't trust anyone. You are family. So we're just told we need you more than ever. You are family to, oh, now you're fired. Upon information and belief, Desiree demanded that Liz and Benny fire Demoree. Would not be surprised if that was what happened, considering what we've already seen happen with Liz and Benny and the conspiracy going on. Again, Iconic has a large contract with ROC Nation and its artists. So yeah, they're not gonna give up their business with ROC Nation, one of their biggest clients. Of course, they're gonna do whatever the CEO says. Again, Iconic has a large contract with ROC Nation and its artists, and upon information and belief, Desiree stepped in to help them financially. In addition to firing Demoree, Iconic refused to pay her for the week she had already worked in December 2023. Demoree was told that to receive payment for the week she worked, she had to sign what was essentially a gag order entitled Separation of Release, which precluded her from reporting Iconic's behavior to Nike. This was obviously illegal. Demoree had to threaten legal action to get paid for the time she had already worked. It's just the plot. The plot continues to thicken. Desiree hired an attorney, quote-unquote, for Demoree. That same week, Desiree hired attorney Brett Schwartz to improperly influence Javon's misdemeanor battery case. On January 8th, 2024, Brett Schwartz filed a notice of appearance purporting to represent Demoree when Desiree actually hired him for her own interests. So he enters notice of appearance, but Demoree never hired him, nor she ever talked to him. Nevertheless, Brett Schwartz filed a fraudulent notice of appearance, which caused prosecutor in Javon's case to reach out to him. Good afternoon. I'm the prosecutor in the above referenced case. I saw that you filed a notice of appearance in the case on behalf of the victim. I'd like to speak to your client regarding the above referenced case and schedule a pre-file conference. Please let me know if I have consent to speak with Ms. Lopez by Thursday. Thank you in advance. So yes, this gets assigned. The case is filed. It gets assigned to Assistant State Attorney. And she's reaching out to this attorney, Brett Schwartz, even though Demoree never talked to him, never hired him. He is holding himself out as being her attorney. Unfortunately, this is not the only occasion that Desiree hired lawyers who pretended as if they were representing Demoree, as explained below. At Desiree's direction, Brett Schwartz tried to convince prosecutors to charge Javon with human trafficking, although there was no legal basis to do so. The excerpt below is taken from an email that Brett Schwartz sent to the prosecutor in Javon's misdemeanor battery case. As a result of this arduous history of manipulation, I'll be reaching out to ASA Nicholas Chavez and or ASA Brenda Music, who's the chief of human trafficking unit, to request they investigate and pursue felony charges against Mr. Hadley for human trafficking at the very least. Oh, just at the very least. Just, no biggie. A little bit of human trafficking. Wow. So yeah, Desiree is so committed to breaking up Javon Hadley away from Demoree. Yeah, she's trying to get him thrown in jail for human trafficking. There's absolutely no basis to pursue family charges against Javon for human trafficking. Desiree was simply using her money, power, and influence to prevent the Hadleys from being together. Desiree even contacted the prosecutor directly using her ROC Nation business email. After the prosecutor told Desiree and Brett that she could not charge Javon, Desiree asked the prosecutor to improperly extend the case. Desiree wanted to keep Javon on edge. From D. Perez at scarterenterprises.com. Right, perhaps even postponing and saying they're investigating whatever they feel they can say so that he at least stays on edge. So yeah, look at that. You're saying you want to improperly extend a case just to keep a defendant feeling like they're on edge. Like, this is clear manipulation, or at least clear attempted manipulation of the legal system. Thankfully, the state's attorney's office in Florida, go Florida here, go Miami, they looked at all this and they're like, this is ridiculous, this is stupid. They dismissed it without bringing any charges, and they even wrote a whole memo to explain how ridiculous of the situation this all was. So yeah, shout out to the ASAs down there, my goodness. Unfortunately, prosecutors agreed to Desiree's demand for more time, which ultimately allowed her to continue to wreak havoc on the Hadleys. Desiree did just that. Her third attempt at a mental health evaluation, March 16, 2024, after the intervention with Victoria Hunter and the training with Rachel Bernstein failed, Desiree directed Natalie Anderson, a ROCNation employee, to confront Demoree's therapist, Dr. Luz Barrio, who Demoree was seeing for grief counseling after her aunt died. Natalie Anderson presented Dr. Barrio with a fabricated audio recording of a woman screaming, "Don't rape me." At Desiree's direction, Ms. Anderson falsely claimed the recording was Javon raping Demoree. Desiree wanted Dr. Barrio to believe that Demoree had some type of mental health issue to capitalize on her threat to Baker Act Demoree. Since Dr. Barrio was intimately familiar with Demoree and had seen her on countless occasions, she knew that Demoree had never been a threat to herself or others, was not in danger, and did not meet Baker Act criteria. So Dr. Barrio refused to do Desiree's dirty work. After learning about Demoree's false Baker Act, as explained below, Dr. Barrio wrote a letter disputing Demoree's supposed need for treatment or hospitalization. Shout out Dr. Barrio. Human may concern. I've been working with Ms. Demoree Lopez since July 2022, providing individual sessions. Throughout therapeutic work, there's been no evidence of visual, auditory, or tactile hallucinations. She's consistently presented as intelligent and coherent. In addition, throughout our clinical work, I have not found reason to recommend hospitalization due to any suspected thought disorder. Wow. Okay. Now I'm assuming she's going to be a big witness for this case, just as someone who is intimately familiar with the family. And we're talking about whether there was a false imprisonment. We can sustain a false imprisonment charge here for this fake Baker Act. And you've got a doctor here that's willing to say, yeah, this does not meet the criteria for Baker Act. Man. But Desiree, of course, undeterred as always, continuing to effectuate her ultimate goal here. Her fourth and successful attempt to unlawfully detain Demoree. On March 27, 2024, after striking out with Dr. Barrio, Victoria Hunter, and Rachel Bernstein, Desiree conspired with and likely paid Dr. Daniel Bober, who works at Memorial Regional Hospital, a state-run facility, to wrongfully commit Demoree to a mental health facility under Florida's Baker Act statute. Desiree and her co-conspirators' plan is sickening. Desiree hired private investigators Stephen Cady, Jessica Cady, and James Fondo, all owners of Sig9 LLC, to lure Demoree to a marina in Dania Beach. One of the Sig9 LLC investigators called Demoree pretending to be a property owner who wanted to hire the Hadleys' landscaping company. So, all right, once again, we're faking who we are. Just total fraudsters going on. Sig9 placed a GPS tracker on Demoree's car. More craziness. A GPS tracker on Demoree's car to follow her movements, a fact that James Fondo later admitted to the police on camera. When Demoree got close to the marina for the business meeting, James Fondo, a former police officer, asked the police to respond on the side of the road near the marina. Two officers from the Broward County Sheriff's Office arrived at approximately 5:40 p.m. James told the officers that Dr. Bober, who was waiting at the marina, was going to Baker Act Demoree. It is important to note that James Fondo said Dr. Bober is going to Baker Act Demoree even before he ever met her. In other words, Dr. Bober had no factual basis to initiate a Baker Act because he had never evaluated Demoree beforehand. At that point, he had not even seen her in person. But since Desiree hired, conspired, and or paid Dr. Bober to commit Demoree under the Baker Act statute, he was going to do exactly just that, no matter the circumstances. When Demoree arrived at the marina, James Fondo, Stephen and Jessica Cady, Dr. Bober, and the police all confronted her. And his body cam is out, and yeah, she is basically surrounded by all these different people. And it's kind of a scary situation. It's like, who are all these people? Like, she went there for a business meeting, now she's surrounded by police, surrounded by people in street clothes. It's just like, yeah, it was a crazy situation. Sig9 owners pretended to be part of an unspecified mobile crisis unit that worked with Dr. Bober, which was a lie. Demoree repeatedly told the police that she never met Dr. Bober before, that he was not her doctor, and that her mother conspired with Dr. Bober to Baker Act her. Demoree even called her own doctor, Dr. Barrio, shout out Dr. Barrio, and begged the police to speak with her, but the police refused. The police then forced a young woman, Demoree, to go with three complete strangers in a dark gray truck with no hospital, police, or mental health facility insignia on it. Police never even verified the identity of any of the individuals on the scene to confirm they belonged to a mobile crisis unit. They just took the word of 3 fraudsters in a gray pickup truck. Frankly, the body-worn camera footage is disgusting and difficult to watch. Equally disturbing, Dr. Bober wrote on the intake form that he personally examined Demoree on March 27, 2024. And diagnosed her with unspecified psychosis. But the statement is bogus because at 5:56, body-worn camera footage shows Dr. Bober leaning against a truck parked in the marina and talking to the police. It is doubtful that any doctor has ever conducted a legitimate psychological evaluation under such circumstances. Dr. Bober's license to practice medicine should be terminated. When Demoree arrived at Memorial Hospital on March 27, 2024, first doctor examined her at 6:21 p.m., noting that she was alert, oriented to person, place, and time, and that her behavior was normal. Everything's normal. Which, yeah, by the way, no, if he really is doing what he's accused of doing here, I agree. Yeah, goodbye. Say bye to your medical license. You're out here making stuff up. Especially if you got paid to do this, man. If you got paid to do this whole scheme to get her Baker acted. And also I'm assuming though this is why the police kind of let this happen, was you've got this guy here who is a prominent doctor in the area. He's the director of a hospital. If he's basically saying, hey, this is who I am, this is what we're doing here, the police are probably they're likely to trust that. So I'm not surprised that the police were kind of going along with all this. Look, they just got called out. And they just try and help facilitate the situation as best it presents itself. Next, nurses also noted that Demoree was cooperative and accused Dr. Bober of colluding with her mother, which is consistent with the body-worn camera footage in the case. More notes from the hospital. Reading between the lines, the hospital staff was clearly concerned about Dr. Bober's decision to detain Demoree for an involuntary examination and documented her side of the story. Nevertheless, Dr. Bober falsely reported that Demoree required intensive, comprehensive, multimodal treatment, including 24-hour medical supervision, which is something that none of his colleagues at the hospital noted. Dr. Bober even directed staff to medicate Demoree with Benadryl. In the screenshot above, Dr. Bober wrote, "If patient refuses PO, give IM," which essentially means that if she refuses Benadryl, then force it upon her through an intramuscular injection. Dr. Bober wrote false information in his report to keep Demoree detained and Desiree happy. Dr. Bober even admitted speaking to Desiree on body-worn camera footage. Important to the issues below, Memorial Regional tested Demoree for drugs on March 27, 2024, which all came back negative. So yeah, man, just going through this, what's so funny about this, and funny in a really sad kind of way, it's like her being in there, I can imagine her being in there, and maybe even sounding crazy of like, it's my mom, she's colluding with everybody, like doing the whole everyone's out to get me type thing, and probably sounding a little crazy as she says it. But the kicker here is that she's actually right. Like, everyone is colluding and conspiring. Like, this is, if this doesn't make you actually crazy, then I don't know what else could. So the fact like that she's been very even keel through all the videos I've seen her doing, like she's been very just with it, very calm. Like she's on a mission at this point. She's like, I'm sick of this. Like, you have made so many attempts to ruin my life and get my husband away from me. Like, it's just ridiculous the lengths that you're going to make all this happen. And yeah, so props to her for sure. All right, Desiree's frivolous Marchman Act and guardianship petitions. Nevertheless, Dr. Bober conspired with Desiree to commit Demoree to Life Skills South Florida Outpatient, which is a drug treatment facility where he is the medical director. Life Skills is owned by or affiliated with Odyssey Behavioral Healthcare. There he is, Daniel Bober, medical director. On March 29, 2024, despite Demoree's normal behavior and negative drug tests, Desiree filed an emergency ex parte petition under the Marchman Act claiming that Demoree suffered from drug and alcohol abuse, something that both she and Dr. Bober knew was untrue. Demoree had never done drugs in her life. Desiree specifically requested for Demoree to be transferred from Memorial Hospital to Life Skills so that she and Dr. Bober could continue Demoree's unlawful attention. Perhaps most disturbing, Desiree also moved for guardianship over Demoree on March 29, 2024, claiming that her 30-year-old daughter, highly educated daughter, who never touched an illegal drug in her life, was incapacitated. My God. Yeah, I don't know. And you've got like real doctors that are signing off on this stuff, and you're being held in a facility. Like, this would make me crazy. And then, of course, they'd be like, oh, look, he's being crazy. He has to continue to be held here. It's like, I'm only crazy because you all are making me crazy. Like, does no one see the insanity going on here? So, man, I really feel for Demoree. This is such a tough situation. It's your own mother, too, that's been doing it. But yeah, Desiree blatantly lied in her guardianship petition, claiming that Demoree was asking friends and family to share prescription pain pills. More excerpts. Desiree listed Liz Fragella as one of the people Demoree supposedly asked for pills, the same Liz who Desiree used during the second fraudulent Baker Act attempt. So Liz from the Iconic, from the company, and who was financially indebted to Desiree for saving her company. More people just being roped into this conspiracy. We can see why there were so many defendants that she's suing here. Demoree has all of her text message conversations with Liz. The messages show that Demoree never asked Liz for illegal drugs or pills. Desiree also listed Miledis Garcia as a person Demoree sought out for drugs, but when Millie was placed under oath by the SA's office, she admitted that Demoree does not do drugs or drink. Once again, another excerpt from the memo. Millie was the caretaker for Demoree's grandfather and was frequently in Demoree's presence. Minerva also never accused Demoree of using drugs. Moreover, Desiree filed the petition on March 29. Demoree stopped communicating with her mom long beforehand. Desiree made blatant misrepresentations to a court again. She then gets transferred to Life Skills. Since Desiree concocted a fraudulent ex parte Marchman Act petition, Demoree was transported to Life Skills on March 30, 2024. So, all this stuff is, actually happening, too. It's not just, someone is saying something crazy or, filing some crazy paperwork, and then that's it. It's no, she's filing the paperwork, and then the stuff is actually happening. There's actually consequences. With the false report to the police of there's a kidnapping in progress. It's okay, that's a false report. It was stupid, but Javon still got arrested. So it's there were real life consequences with real people that just every step of this is just harming the real people involved here. So she gets transported to Life Skills. She repeatedly asked to be examined by someone other than Dr. Bober, but they initially refused. But unbiased professionals began to realize Demoree did not belong there. Staff wrote that Demoree was not delusional, speech is normal, no hallucinations, thought process intact. Also noted she was positive. Nevertheless, Life Skills required Demoree to undergo treatment for an addiction she did not have. She begged to take a hair follicle test. Eventually, a worker acquiesced on April 3rd. Not surprisingly, the hair follicle test, which detects drug use 90 days prior at a minimum, showed no drugs had been in Demoree's system. Here's the results of that test. Negative all the way through. Life Skills still did allow her to leave after two negative. I'm assuming that means still did not allow her to leave after two negative drug tests. Javon's second fraudulent arrest. One more fraudulent arrests. On April 5th, 2024, while Demoree was at Life Skills, Desiree conspired with others and government officials to get Javon arrested for an alleged battery that occurred on September 11, 2023. This was another ploy by Desiree and her co-conspirators because in a meeting in January 24, just months earlier, the state told Desiree and her team that no probable cause existed to arrest Javon for the September 11th incident. But as reflected in the state's closeout memo, Desiree essentially hired a team to get what she wanted. I want to read from this because this memo is important. Because this is the prosecutor. This is what I used to do, right? Being a prosecutor. Looking at a case, no dog in the fight, not bought and paid for, just looking at the facts and proceeding, and choosing to either proceed or not proceed based on the actual facts as they are. Not the manipulations, just the facts. State's attorney says, at some point during March 24, the victim's mother hired Lara Gatz and former chief of the Miami-Dade State's Attorney's Office Narcotics Division, Jessica Caso Pedraja. After this, in late March, the victim's mother went back to MDPD, Miami-Dade Police, with the Google Drive of evidence previously reviewed, and Miami-Dade reinitiated an investigation into the September 11th incident. So it was already closed out, and she goes back to them with a new drive of evidence, and they reopen it again. The only new, quote-unquote, new evidence was between January 24, when the State's Attorney's Office and Miami-Dade Police found no probable cause, and April 5th, when the defendant was arrested, were the formal recorded interviews of the witnesses. However, those witnesses had submitted affidavits and previously spoken with the state to provide their testimony related to the incident. The recorded interviews did not change the fact that the witnesses never saw the battery and provided the same information to the state and police previously. When the April arrest was effectuated, Ms. Caso Pedreja told ASA Farrell that she was the former chief of the narcotics unit and was very well connected with the police departments. She also told ASA Farrell to not be surprised if the case is taken from her and given to a more experienced ASA. Oh, she's trying to lil bro the state's attorney. Oh, don't worry, lil bro. It's going to go to a more experienced state's attorney. Deterring Detective Minoud's pre-file. Arresting detective, her Sergeant Reyes, requested to be present during the detective's pre-file, which is unusual. Detective Minoud did not speak to the victim. Detective Minoud did not speak to the witness. Detective Palmer did, so alleging some potential conspiracy going on between, looks like, former state's attorney, former chief of the narcotics division, and folks in the police department as well. Despite the frivolity of the arrest, as recognized by the state, Javon was initially ordered to stay away from Demoree. Yeah, no contact order. It typically happens in domestic violence cases. Desiree capitalized on Javon's wrongful arrest and was not finished terrorizing the Hadleys because there is a third fraudulent arrest. On April 8, 2024, as Demoree was about to be released from life skills, Desiree conspired with others to get Javon false arrested again for allegedly violating the stay-away order related to the April 5, 2024 fraudulent arrest. This was another bogus event captured on body-worn cameras. That day, Javon responded to his home to feed the cat. Demoree was still in custody under the Fraudulent Marchment Act petition, but was set to be released later that day. Desiree's private investigators who were monitoring Javon contacted the police and told them that Javon was at the house. Body cam footage showed officers speaking with their supervisor about this case. Officers admitted the higher-ups directed them to arrest Javon. This nefarious act was also addressed in the state's closeout memo. This arrest was prompted by a PI, hired to follow the defendant. The PI contacted the police sergeant to report the defendant at the residence, which was under surveillance. Just your house. Can you imagine just trying to live your life living at your house and it's just under surveillance? Crazy. This violation is not based on any contact with the victim and was quite frankly discovered through questionable means. When the arresting officers arrived on scene, they had no idea why they were there. They responded to a domestic violence situation, but were directed to go to the address by the sergeant. A PI then approached one of the officers to provide them with a copy of the stay-away order. The responding officers had to call the sergeant to figure out what was going on and why they were there. In trial, the cross of these officers would be detrimental to the state's case. After Desiree caused the police to wrongfully arrest Javon a third time, Demoree was released from life skills. The reign of terror continues. Demoree immediately reported to the prosecutors that Desiree was using her power, influence, and money to keep them apart. The state asked Demoree to give a sworn statement in their office April 26th. When she arrived, the receptionist instructed her to sit in the waiting room. While waiting for the prosecutor, Demoree saw Laura Gatz, Esquire, an attorney who supposedly represented the witness in Javon's case, walk in and speak with the receptionist. Laura Gatz was really hired by Desiree. Laura Gatz asked the receptionist, "Has Demoree Lopez arrived yet?" She was supposed to be meeting with the ASA at 9 a.m. Laura Gatz did not see Demoree. The receptionist asked Laura Gatz who she was. She identified herself as her attorney, Demoree's attorney, and the witnesses. So she's literally sitting there. This lady is standing at the counter saying, "I represent Demoree Lopez." And Demoree is sitting there like, who is this lady? Well, she doesn't represent me. The receptionist told Laura Gatz that Demoree was inside the waiting room and asked her if she wanted to sit with her client. Laura Gatz, knowing that she did not represent Demoree, said that she would just wait outside. So she even knows she's not representing her for real. Or even if that she saw her, then it'd be like, hey, oh, cool, funny seeing you here, huh? Yeah, so she knows what she's doing is sketchy. Demoree believes that her mother instructed Laura Gatz to respond to the prosecutor's office to intimidate Demoree. This was the second time that the attorneys hired by Desiree falsely claimed they represented Demoree. Eventually, the prosecutor dropped all charges against Javon, wrote a scathing 11-page closeout memo explaining Desiree and her co-conspirators' unlawful and inappropriate actions, and that's been what's been referred to kind of throughout this whole complaint is that memo. Desiree's frivolous lawsuits. On April 22nd, 2024, Desiree filed a frivolous lawsuit against Demoree. In that case, Demoree's mom and stepfather, Desiree's husband, surprised Demoree with a new car in December 2020, which they put in her name. Desiree claimed she was the lawful owner of the car, which was false. Title to the car had always been in Demoree's name. Desiree claims she has a mutual agreement where Demoree was granted use of the vehicle with the understanding that it would not be disposed of without Desiree's permission. This too was false. Desiree claimed Demoree wrongly asserted control of the vehicle, causing harm to Desiree. I mean, if y'all gave it to her and it's in her name, the title's in her name, like, yeah, you've got no basis here. Brief reading of the lawsuit shows how low Desiree will stoop to get what she wants. Recently, Desiree filed a separate lawsuit against Javon, claiming that he violated her right to privacy in a home that she does not live in and only entered 3 times in the last 4 years. In fact, Javon and Demoree actually lived in the house that Desiree somehow claimed a right to privacy in. The lawsuit is also frivolous and only intended to harass the Hadleys. Demoree and Javon have spent a large amount of money on lawyers to escape her unlawful detentions and lost out on countless job opportunities. They have suffered economic and non-economic damages from Desiree's acts and others, including lost wages, emotional distress, pain and suffering, etc. The lawsuit follows and Desiree's conduct must cease. Well, folks, that is it for the facts of the case. The rest of the complaint is just going through the counts, which are the actual alleged violations of law that Demoree is alleging, and it's things like false imprisonment, invasion of privacy, the stuff that you would expect based on that fact pattern that we just went through. But yeah, for our purposes today of seeing how this ties to the Tory Lanez case and seeing the extent that ROC Nation might go to effectuate a legal outcome, it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting and it's quite telling. So when we're looking at things in the court system, right? You've probably heard this before, but the 3 things we look at are means, motive, and opportunity. I think this lawsuit absolutely demonstrates the means are there. The means are there for ROC Nation and the power players within it to try and manipulate doctors, to try and manipulate prosecutors, to try and manipulate law enforcement generally, to to just weaponize the medical system, weaponize the legal system. It shows that, right, the means are absolutely there. It also shows that the opportunity is there because just in the age of technology, the age of communication, there's basically always going to be an opportunity to try and effectuate a scheme like this. And so finally, that leaves us with motive. And that's where we might have our biggest difference between this case and the Tory case, because for whatever reason, Desiree Perez here just absolutely hates Javon Hadley and wants him gone. And I can understand why she may be driven to absolutely extreme extents to make that happen and using her wealth and her power to make that happen, because in her mind, she's trying to protect her daughter, which my understanding is this is her only daughter. And while yes, she is the CEO of Roc Nation and she was using Roc Nation's resources, I don't know how much of this factual sequence here was anything that was signed off on by the people at Roc Nation. Seems more so like the kind of insane delusional tactics and delusional commitment that Desiree was seeking for her own personal ends, not on behalf of the company, not on behalf of Jay-Z or anyone like that. Seems like, yeah, she wants this outcome for her family, which is to have this guy, Javon Hadley, out. And she's willing to take pretty much any step she can to make that happen. So her motive here is very clearly understandable, which is that she hates Javon Hadley and wants him out. The motive for Roc Nation to step in and try and manipulate the Tory Lanez case, I need to see more evidence of that. I think I've seen some comments of people saying there are connections between one of the doctors in the Tory case and Roc Nation. So if that's something to look into, then leave a comment down below and I'll look into it. And yeah, certainly there's no motivation here for Roc Nation to try and step into this case and protect their golden goose, which is Megan Thee Stallion, and try and prevent her from nuking her career, which very possibly could have happened if it comes out that she just is an absolute liar and she did lie on Tory Lanez and she lied on him to try and protect her career. I could see how Roc Nation may want that to not happen, but do they want that to not happen bad enough that they're willing to conspire with doctors to fabricate medical reports, to try and push the DA's office to achieve a certain outcome or push the police to investigate a certain way? Honestly, and this is my standard really with everything, I just need to see the evidence of it. Because full credit to Demoree in this lawsuit, she brought the evidence. She brought the text messages, the screenshots, the pictures, the whole iPhone thing pinging in New York. This is a very well done complaint, aside from the couple typos that we saw. And so yes, while I'm not going to dispute or deny that Roc Nation absolutely has the means and the opportunity to influence the Tory Lanez case on behalf of protecting Meg, I just need to see more evidence that they had enough motive to actually do what they would have had to have done to successfully sway the outcome in that case. But yeah, I think this is super interesting though. Yeah, like I said earlier, gosh, Desiree Perez, she sounds like a literal Marvel supervillain here with the layers and the extent and the commitment, just absolutely insane, trying to get this guy out of the house. And yeah, this is a case I'm certainly going to be interested in following more closely as it progresses. And so if you like this video or you learned something new here, then drop a like down below to let me know. And also drop a like if you want to see me make more videos covering the Tory Lanez case or this Demoree Hadley case. And if you like this kind of content generally, then be sure to subscribe to come back for more. And last but not least, most importantly, let's connect. I want to connect with as many people as possible, so be sure to drop some comments down below. Let me know what you think about this case. What are the connections to the Tory case that I'm missing? And also go follow me on X, because I made this video as a result of a poll that I put up there, and the vote that won the poll was for me to cover this case. So yeah, if you want to have your voice heard on what I cover on this channel, then go follow on X and be on the lookout for more polls like that. But yeah, that is going to be it for this video. I appreciate y'all being here and making it through to the end, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next one.